So in the 2013-14 season, Carlisle United were relegated from League One. After that, they had some really poor seasons in League Two, sometimes even struggling to stay in the division. They were nearly out of the Football League. Thankfully though, for their sake anyway, after a brilliant season from Paul Simpson and his side, they have been promoted. They are back in League One. Just how are they going to cope though in League One? That's what we're going to be talking about in today's video. Something a little bit different, but if you do go on to enjoy, please make sure to drop a like on there for me. If you could try and hit 70 likes on today's video, that'd be massively appreciated. Subscribe if you are new as well. We are now on the road to 8,000 subscribers. Thank you very much for 7,000. Your support over the last season has been massively appreciated, so thank you very much to everybody who has continued to support the channel. Hopefully we can hit 8,000 very soon, so thank you all very much for the support. Drop a comment in as well down in the comment section down below. What do you think Carlisle United need to do? What positions do you think they need to improve on ahead of this campaign? Here is how the current squad is looking for Carlisle United, and it's currently looking a little bit weak in my opinion. There's clearly a lot of room for improvement. Now I just want to specify, I know Carlisle have played a 3-5-2 for the majority of the campaign, and my potential lineup team, which we'll get onto later on in the video, is a 3-5-2, but it's just easier for me to put all the players in a 4-2-3-1 graphic. You look at that and you think, well, there's clearly some weak spots and weak points in there. If a player is highlighted in yellow at the time of recording, they have not signed a new contract with the football club. Yesterday it was confirmed that Christian Dennis, Carlisle's top goal scorer last season with 20 goals and I think 4 or 5 assists, left the club. He has turned down the new deal with the club to come back into League 2. He has signed a new 2-year contract with Tranmere Rovers. So if you look at that, I think in my opinion they need a goalkeeper, could do with a right back / right wing back, they need a left-sided centre half, a left back or left wing back, they need a number 6, they could probably do with a number 8 to be honest with you, 2 number 10s. If they're going to play with wingers, then they need 2 right wingers and a left winger, and they also probably need a striker in my opinion. Now I know Paul Simpson likes to have numerous striking options. You know, I think last season they have 5 or 6 strikers in the end. I think you need to be a little bit lighter in that department and stock up in some other positions, because we saw at times when they did get injuries, the players who were coming in to replace certain players weren't as strong, and obviously I'm basing them numbers off of all 3 of them players who are out of contract signing them new deals. Amari Patrick, there's rumours that he might be going to a League 2 club in London. Taylor Charters looks likely to sign a new deal with the club. Obviously, I think he actually scored one of his penalties as well, didn't he? In at that League 2 playoff final against Stockport County. And Morgan Feeney's got loads of interest from clubs in League 1, League 2, and also abroad in Scotland as well. I think, was it Hibernian or Hart, somewhere like that. Some really good clubs looking at Morgan Feeney. I think that's deserved. I think he's had a brilliant season. That will obviously be a massive loss for Carlisle, but in terms of their squad currently, I think that squad certainly will be fighting relegation. As you would obviously expect, you know, I think any team who's been promoted and have released a number of players, they're going to struggle if they don't make signings. And that is obviously what the transfer window is about. But because of Carlisle's budget and their location in the country, I do think it is harder for them to sign players than a lot of the other clubs, because they're so far away from the major cities in England. It is sometimes a bit harder to attract players. Now, don't get me wrong, Paul Simpson has had an absolutely fantastic season. I think every time he's been at Carlisle, he's done a good job. Obviously, he left in, was it 2004, 2005, to try and go on and better his managerial career. He's since then realised himself that he actually just wants to be at somewhere where he loves, and he loves it at Carlisle, and it just seems to be a match made in heaven, doesn't it? You know, if you think about how poor Carlisle have been over the last couple of seasons, yes, they had a pretty decent first half of the season behind closed doors, but after January they completely fell away. I think they were top of the league for the majority of that first season. Apart from that, since they've been back in League 2, they really have struggled. And last season, if it wasn't for Paul Simpson, with the way they were going, they could have been playing National League football this season. They've just gone by. But now we're going to get into some transfer suggestions where I think they're realistic signings that Carlisle could make, which will strengthen them. Some players have been released from League 1 clubs, League 2 clubs. There's some loan deals in there as well. A lot of them are free transfers, because obviously Carlisle don't really have the budgets to be going out and paying money for players, and I don't think that really matters, because Paul Simpson, he has his style of play, he sticks with it, and it works. I'm not the biggest fan of long ball sort of football, but when they get it in the final third, they get the ball on the deck and they scrap for second balls. They work so hard, and they've got the right balance in between young players with energy. You've got the experience, you know, the dark arts. They've got such a good balance, or they did last season. to see some of them players move on is obviously a little bit of a loss for them, but obviously that is what Paul Simpson sees as the best move for the football club. Before we actually get into my transfer suggestions, we're going to quickly have a look at the players who Carlisle have already released. Now, a lot of these players were youngsters and all that sort of stuff. Obviously, if you saw on the original graphic, which I showed you at the start of the video, there were a few youngsters on there, and in my opinion, I still think you need 2 more first choice, first team regulars really, and then you have a younger option. I don't think you can have a first choice and then a youngster, because say like the left back position, for example, obviously Jack Armour would be your first choice left back or left wing back. Max Kilsby, if he were to come in, if Jack Armour was to be injured or suspended, I think that's a massive drop-off in quality in a division like League One, when you're probably going to be in a relegation battle. You know, let's be realistic here. I think you can't have that. So I do think they are going to need a little bit of a bigger squad than what they had last season. The owners are going to need to maybe put a bit deeper into their pockets, and I think they are going to need to invest. Now, in terms of the players released by Carlisle United when they officially put out their return list, Lewis Bell, Jamie Devitt, Brennan Dickinson, Josh Dickson, Sam Fishburn, Mick Kelly, Joel Senior, Toby Shaw-Silver and Scott Simmons were all released at the end of their contracts. Now, apart from Joel Senior, I don't think any of them players can really complain about not really being offered a new deal. A lot of them not really being involved in the first team and all that sort of stuff. Jamie Devitt's had numerous injuries throughout his career and he just can't seem to catch a break. Now, Joel Senior was an interesting one for me because I don't know too much about Jack Ellis, but he seems to be a right-back option. Obviously, they had Finn back as well on loan from, I want to say it was Nottingham Forest. Again, he had his injury problems. I think Jack Ellis also had some injury problems, but Senior for me was a steady League 2 right-back, right-wing back, but I don't think he would have been able to cut it in League 1. So from that point of view, it makes sense, and I do think there is better options out there. If you go through some transfer suggestions then, in terms of a goalkeeping option, I would suggest Nathan Bishop from Manchester United. Now, he does have his contract expiring with Manchester United in 2023, this summer coming up, but Man United do have the option to trigger it for a further season. Bishop, not the season just gone by, but the previous season with Mansfield Town in League 2 was absolutely outstanding, the best goalkeeper in the league in my opinion. The season just gone by, 22-23, I don't think he was playing any football anywhere, and I think a League 1 move would be a good move for him now, whether it's a loan or a permanent. I think a permanent would be a bit harder because obviously he's coming from Manchester United. That money that you're on at Manchester United, even as an academy player, under 23s player, coming down into a team like Carlisle who haven't got the biggest of budgets, that one might struggle a little bit. So I think from a Carlisle point of view, if you are interested in Nathan Bishop, you'll be wanting that option to be triggered, and then you can get him on loan where you're not having to pay as much of his wages. Obviously, in terms of the goalkeeping options, you've got Thomas Hawley and Gabriel Breeze. I don't personally feel that Thomas Hawley is good enough to be a number 1 in League 1, in my opinion. Now, some people might disagree with that, but I think you need some real competition in there, and I think Nathan Bishop would more than provide that. Thomas Hurley's age, he's going to be happy to play number 2. I'm not so sure, but I think them two would give each other really, really good competition. And you've obviously got Gabriel Breeze to come in for maybe the odd Papa John's Trophy game, potentially. I'm not really too sure. But in terms of a goalkeeper suggestion, I would suggest Nathan Bishop. Right back is another position that Carlisle need to improve. Currently, Jack Ellis is the only right back, right wing back on the books. Cameron Norman is who I am going to suggest. He's had a really, really good season with Newport County. He is out of a deal with the Welsh outfit as well, and I think he's ready to make that step up into League 1. Like I say, he's had a really, really good season with Newport. I think he could be a very good signing, and I don't think because he's coming, I think because he's coming up from League 2 rather than maybe dropping down from the Championship, I think his wages are going to be realistic for Carlisle. Now, I wanted to make all these signings as realistic as possible, and I do think Cameron Norman, he'll be wanting the game time at his age, and I think he could get that. Would obviously provide some good competition with Jack Ellis. Very good going forward, solid defensively as well. Suits the Paul Simpson style of play with his physique. You know, he's quite tall, quite stocky, not scared to put a challenge in. I think that would be a very good signing on a free transfer, in my opinion. The only position I don't think they need to improve in is right centre-back if Morgan Feeney signs his new contract. Now, obviously, that would leave Paul Huntington, Morgan Feeney and Corey Whelan as your 3 right-sided centre-backs, and I don't think you need to improve on that. There's no point having 4 right-sided centre-backs. Obviously, I think Whelan can play on the left side, and Feeney, if you need him to, and if he does sign his new contract, he could probably do a job there. But a left-sided centre-back option, I'm going to suggest Emmanuel Monthi, who's been released by Walsall. Now, I was quite surprised to see him be released by Walsall because I think he's a very, very good defender at League 2 level, and again, would suit Paul Simpson's style of play. You know, very physical, loves a header, loves a challenge, can even do a job at left back if you play a back 4. You know, he's pocketed Scott Banks, and we all know how good Scott Banks was throughout that campaign. I think Monthé on a free transfer would be a brilliant signing. Again, like Cameron Norman, making that step up from League Two, his wages are not going to be astronomical. They're going to be realistic for that level, and I think as a left-sided centre-half, he could certainly provide some good competition with John Mellish. If you're short on central midfield options, you could then put Mellish into midfield, get Monthé at the back with Huntington and Whelan or Feeney. I think he will provide a very, very good option for Paul Simpson's side, and I think he would be a good signing on a free transfer. And like what I mentioned earlier, I think left back or left wing back is a position that you do need to improve, and with Jack Armour being your first choice and Max Kilsby being more of a youngster option, I think a signing from Barrow would be a very good play. I think Patrick Brough, I want to say his name is, would be a good option, again being released by Barrow at the end of his contract. I'm not sure if he was released or he's turned the contract down. Either way, he won't be with Barrow next season. He's at a good age, again suits that style of play, very good going forward, solid defensively. Again, similar to Norman, he's got that tall physical build and he really would suit Paul Simpson's style of play. Another one who's making that step up from League Two, so wouldn't want astronomical wages. Now, there is rumours that he's already agreed a contract with Bradford City. At the time of recording, nothing has been announced and he is still a free agent. I think that would be a very, very good sign. Obviously, if he's currently with Barrow, he's not having to travel too far. He's not probably going to have to move house or anything like that. They're very close to one another, so I think that would be pretty much the perfect sign. I think that's a match made in heaven. Will provide some brilliant competition with Jack Armour, and then if needs be, you've got, what was his name again? You got Max Kilsby as a final option there. I think, again, that would be a pretty decent signing. In terms of a holding midfield suggestion, now at the moment, the only natural player who can do that role is Callum Guy. Owen Moxon can do a job in there, but you more want him as a number 8, pushing forward and getting closer to that box. I think Tom Pett, who has been released by Port Vale, would again be a very good signing. Suits Paul Simpson's style of play once more. I think he would be a very good holding, sitting central midfielder. I think I'm right in saying he was their captain for the season just gone by. On Port Vale fans were gutted to see him leave. I think one team's loss is another team's gain, and I think Port Vale fans would have liked to have seen Tom Pett stay, so I think that would be a pretty decent signing. Coming in from Port Vale, again, he's not going to be on astronomical wages. I do think that would be an affordable signing. Again, at a good age, gives you that experience. He knows how to survive in League One with that first season under his belt with Port Vale. I think that would be a very good signing, in my opinion, for the centre of midfield. Another central midfield option, this one's more of a box-to-box suggestion. I'm going to suggest Alex Patterson, who has been released from Harrogate Town. Had a brilliant season there. I think he got, was it 9 goals, 6 assists, something like that. Really, really good season. Coming from Harrogate, he's not going to be on high wages whatsoever because Carlisle's budget, as small as it might be, it's definitely a lot bigger than Harrogate Town's. He's had a very, very good season. Again, making that step up from League Two. I think he's had a brilliant season under Simon Weaver, and he's a little bit similar to Alfie McCalmon in that way. He's going to bring you energy in that midfield, but he's also going to bring you quality on the ball. Will provide a bit of competition for Owen Moxon, and even if you want to play, instead of playing a sitter and 2 8s, you could even play 2 8s and a 10 and go a little bit more attacking. He could probably do a job as a number 10 as well. If you think of a midfield of Callum Guy, Owen Moxon, and someone like an Alex Patterson, to not even mention someone like a Tom Pett, Taylor Charters, I think that would provide some real good competition in that centre of midfield, in my opinion. And like I say, leader in there, I think that would be a very, very good signing. Now, I did actually suggest here that you need 2 number 10s or attacking midfielders, whatever you want to call them. I could only really find one that was realistic and suits Paul Simpson's style of play. I'm going to suggest Albie Morgan, who has been released by Charlton Athletic. Never really been able to cement himself in that side and really knuckle down at Charlton, but I think a fresh start somewhere in a completely different area of the country could do him the world of good. One team's loss is another team's gain. I think it would be a good replacement for Alfie McCalmon, but he's got that experience of playing in League One. He's very young as well, so still plenty of time for him to grow and develop. His wages, I wouldn't have thought would be anything abnormal, to be honest with you. I think he really needs to knuckle down though now. Get 15 goal contributions in a League One side. I think if he plays every game, he's certainly got that in his locker. I couldn't really find anyone else to suggest, so I'm sure Greg Abbott at Carlisle United will have to find someone else. You can't be just watching my video for this, but I think they do need 2 number 10s if they're going to play that way with the midfield, and I think Albie Morgan would be a pretty decent suggestion. Into the right wing then, again, this is a position where I suggested 2 options. Now, like what I mentioned earlier, I know Carlisle play a 3-5-2, they don't naturally play with wingers, but say suddenly they get a centre-half crisis and they've only got 2 available and they have to play a back 4, they're then going to have to play with wingers, and while Mari Patrick and Jordan Gibson can play on the wing, you need more natural players in that position. Scott Banks on loan from Crystal Palace is who I am going to suggest first. Now, don't get me wrong, he is out of a contract with Crystal Palace and we don't still know what is going to happen with that, and if he does go to Carlisle, it'll break my heart and I'll absolutely hate him for it, but it would be a perfect signing for Paul Simpson's side. I don't think they'll have to pay a lot of his wages if he's coming in from a Premier League club. I think that would be unrealistic of Crystal Palace to expect Carlisle to have to pay his wages, and we all saw what Scott Banks has done in League 2. Absolutely ripped it up. He's been absolutely brilliant, and I think it would be a fantastic signing. Maybe doesn't suit Paul Simpson's style of play as much as some other players. You know, he's not as robust. He's more trickery and flair, and while they do have that, they don't really have that in the wide areas, and I think it would be an absolutely brilliant signing. You probably need to move to League One. I think somewhere like a Cambridge, Oxford or Charlton is more realistic, but for me personally, I think Scott Banks would be a really good loan move from Crystal Palace. And another right-wing suggestion, released by Bolton Wanderers, I'm going to suggest Elias Kachunga. Now, his wages might be a little bit out of budget, to be honest with you, but I think it would be a good signing. You know, he's been steady for Bolton over the last couple of seasons, and obviously they think it is now time to move on from him. He's a solid League One player. He scores goals, he gets assists, and it suits Paul Simpson's style of play, in my opinion, down to a T. I think it would be an absolutely brilliant signing. The only problem for me there maybe is the wages. Carlisle fans, if you had to pick one between Scott Banks on loan or Elias Kachunga on a permanent transfer, obviously two different types of players, two different age spectrums as well, but let me know down below which one would you rather sign. Over as my left wing suggestion. Now, this one's not really a natural left winger, he's more of a striker who can play on the left wing. I'm going to suggest Daniel Adjei of Crewe Alexandra. Now, his contract is up with Crewe in this summer transfer window coming up. Their manager has already said it's unrealistic that Dan Adjei will be staying with Crewe, which I think is positive news. It looks very likely he's going to be going to Portsmouth. Burton and Bradford are also said to be interested. I think it would be a great signing though for Paul Simpson's side if he is to make that step up into League One. I think at a club like Carlisle or Burton, wherever he goes, somewhere like that where he's going to get game time would do him the world of good. I think he got, was it 16 goals and 5 assists in the end for Crewe, which I think is a really good return when you're playing in such a poor Crewe side. I'd absolutely love him at Bradford City, but I think League One is where he's probably destined to go. With him playing already at Crewe, they're much more northern than somewhere like a Portsmouth, aren't they, at Carlisle? So I think that would be a great signing for Paul Simpson's side. I don't know what his wages are like, to be honest with you, so I can't really comment on that, but I still think it would be a decent signing. And the final player I am going to suggest then in terms of a striking option, obviously at the moment you've got Ryan Edmondson, Joe Garner, and potentially Amari Patrick if he does sign that new contract. If he doesn't, then obviously you'll need to get more strikers in, but I'm going to suggest James Wilson of Port Vale. He is currently out of a contract with the football club in this upcoming summer transfer window. He has been off the new deal though by Port Vale. I think it'd be a great signing for Paul Simpson's side. I would be inclined to say Port Vale will be able to offer him higher wages than Carlisle, but is the game time going to be a bit of a factor? He's a little bit injury prone as well at James Wilson, so this one is a bit of a left field shout, but there's not many good strikers who've been released. I think Adjei would be a perfect signing to play there. Wilson, he's a bit similar to Christian Dennis in terms of his style of play. You know, he's not a target man, he's not a runner in behind, he's just a good player at linking the play up, a decent finisher as well, and I think he would be a pretty solid replacement for Christian Dennis. Both left-footed as well. And there are all my transfer suggestions. I think there's 11 there in total. Let me know down in the comment section down below, Carlisle fans. Would you be happy if any of these players that signed for your club, and do you think they're realistic as well? I did try to keep them as realistic as possible, and in my opinion, I think a large majority of them are pretty realistic. So if all of them signings were to happen, here is how I would line up with Nathan Bishop in goal, a back three of Morgan Feeney, Paul Huntington and John Mellish. In the full-back positions, you've got Cameron Norman and Jack Armour, with Owen Moxham, Callum Guy and Albie McCalmont in the midfield, and you'd have Ryan Edmondson and Daniel Adjei up front. On the bench, that'd leave Thomas Hawley, Emmanuel Monthe, Patrick Brough, Tom Pear, Alex Patterson, James Wilson and Joe Garner. Some big hitters not even making this squad. Obviously, it all does depend on Morgan Feeney signing that new contract. Let me know down in the comment section down below, where would this team that you see on screen finish in League One? I'm going to leave it there though for today's video. If you have enjoyed, please make sure to drop a like on there for me. If you could try and hit 70 likes. As I said at the start of today's video, that'd be massively appreciated. Subscribe if you are new as well. Thank you once again for 7,000 subscribers. We are now on the road though to 8,000, so please make sure you are subscribed. If you haven't already, with that post notification bell on, it's free to do so and it does massively help out. Drop a comment in the comment section down below as well. Which team do you want to see me do this next? Northampton, Stevenage or Leyton Orient? We're going to be doing it for all of the teams that have been promoted from League 2 in the season just gone by, and will obviously be in League 1 in the upcoming campaign. Thank you very much for watching today's video. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you all very soon for another one. Peace!